We are living in a moment in European security when what used to be occasional alarms are becoming a pattern. Recent Russian incursions into the airspaces of Estonia, Romania, Poland, probes by fighter jets, drones, violations that are sometimes brief but are sometimes more persistent. These are not just random events, they are signals, tests and experiments. And how NATO responds could not only just shape the outcome of the Ukraine and Russia war, but the broader stability of Europe for years. We're going to examine what these incursions actually mean by Russia, what is their strategy and their broader campaign for the Ukraine and Russia war, and what they reveal about NATO's strengths and vulnerabilities, and how UK and our allies might or must respond. We'll also explore scenarios going forward, risks of escalation, and the urgency of readiness. So, what has happened? On the 19th of September, 3 Russian MiG-31 fighter jets violated Estonian airspace. They stayed inside for around 12 minutes. They turned off their transponders, didn't file flight plans, and they ignored signals from NATO aircraft scrambled to respond. Earlier, around the 9th and 10th of September, upwards of 19 to 23 Russian drones crossed into Polish airspace. Poland scrambled jets. NATO also participated. Up to 4 of the drones were shot down, and Poland invoked Article 4 of the NATO treaty. And then you also had Romania reported a drone incursion near its airspace. German Eurofighters were scrambled. What patterns have we got emerging here? These are not isolated. They're multiple incursions over recent weeks. And these violations, they're varying in nature. You've got drones, you've got reconnaissance and fighter jets. Sometimes with transponders turned off and flight plans missing. NATO has responded, scrambling jets under its air policing. They've intercepted and they've escorted Russian fighter jets out of its airspace, and they've occasionally had to shoot down drones. But what might Russia be doing? Let's have a look and move into interpretation. What do these incursions say about Russian objectives beyond the war in Ukraine, especially in terms of its strategy towards NATO? First of all, testing response times and readiness. By flying unannounced with transponders off, without your flight plans and lingering, Russia forces NATO to detect, identify, track, scramble and intercept, giving Moscow data on how long those steps take. How quickly can allies coordinate? If you look at the Estonian case, that was 12 minutes they were inside the airspace. Secondly, they're probing weaknesses and gaps. Where are the radar gaps? Where are the slower sectors? Which borders respond more slowly? And which states have a weaker air defence and fewer resources? You've got the use of drones in large numbers, sometimes cheap or decoys. These can reveal vulnerabilities in detection, identification and our rules of engagement. You had the Poland incursion with many drones, 19 to 23 drones. They say unarmed, or were they just decoys? This can suggest probing non-kinetic thresholds and constraints. Then you've got political signalling. Even if it's not intended for a full escalation, these incursions test political will. How will NATO governments respond? Will they make large protests, invoke Article 4, sanction, deploy more assets? Are they trying to sow in uncertainty and fear and undermine NATO's eastern flank? Or is it all a massive distraction and diversion? Are these incursions trying to pull NATO attention away from Ukraine and from the key fronts? If resources are stretched, then multiple probes can force reallocation. And can they test whether NATO can sustain a high readiness over time? Then you've got the escalation ladder building. Is repeated violations an aim to gradually shift what is considered acceptable, moving the boundaries, making more aggression appear less exceptional? testing the thresholds of responses, what NATO tolerates, what forces escalation. Then you've got intelligence gathering, beyond reaction time, intercepts, NATO radars and communications. This all gives Russia data. Which radars saw them? How quickly would the scrambled jets reach them? What routes are monitored and what routes aren't? Are they also probing our rules of engagement? Will NATO shoot down drones? Does civilian risk limit response? Are there legal or diplomatic consequences that will restrain NATO? How has NATO reacted thus far? They've scrambled jets and they've intercepted. You had F-35s based in Italy respond to the MiG-31s in Estonian airspace. NATO's Baltic Air Policing mission performed as it was designed. Then you had Poland, the drone incursion. Allied jets were scrambled. Air defences put on alert. Some drones were shot down and they even closed down civilian airports. What's the diplomatic response here? Estonia invoked Article 4 of the NATO treaty. Then Poland summoned Russian diplomats. Formal protests. Now, what policy and force adjustments have they had to make? NATO has now launched and reinforced Operation Eastern Sentry to bolster the readiness along the eastern flank. It's also increased its air policing, raising its alert levels. They're now calling for stronger responses. Political leaders in Poland and Czech Republic are saying Russia must be held to account. Some are even saying for the possibility of shooting down violating aircraft. But what limitations and constraints do we have? You've got the risk of escalation. Shooting down manned aircraft is a real risk of serious escalation. You've got the legal and diplomatic repercussions. You've got the uncertainty of over who is violating what and whether Russia will deny or justify. And we've got some resource constraints. Maintaining high readiness is hard. Operating your jets as a quick reaction force is hard as well. Keeping air defences and radars fully functional and staff takes a lot of money. You've got the fuel, you've got the maintenance. And if you want clarity and focus, head over to combatreadyhq.co.uk. The link is in the description. We've got you covered with our amazing coffee blends. Click the link in the description, but let's get back into it. What risks do we have? What's at stake? And what does NATO need to do? What risks are there then? You've got accidental escalation. What if we had a misidentification? A shot fired in error? An aircraft entering airspace because of a navigational error? This could spiral out of control. Then you've got normalisation. Repeated low-level incursions could lead to what is creeping acceptance, reducing deterrence. Then we've got our capability gaps exposed. If you've got some borders or states that are slower to respond or are less well defended, Russia could exploit these sectors. Then we've got the political fatigue. Once again, maintaining high readiness is extremely expensive and stressful. Over time, domestic politics might push for de-escalation or even cutbacks. What does NATO need? They need to maintain and improve funding. Ensure funding allows for a constant high readiness. Make sure we have enough fighters, we have enough fuel, make sure they're continuously maintained and fully serviceable. Then you've got the training to go on top of that. It's all about enhancing detection and surveillance. We need radars with full coverage. You've got the remote sectors, the little blind spots that need covering. Then we need advanced systems for detecting drones, assessing the threats. Then among NATO, we need fast coordination amongst all the allies. We need to share our radar pictures, a unified airspace control where we're all working together to intercept any sort of aircraft. Then you need clear, defined rules of engagement. Allies and pilots, air defence system operators need to have clarity about what conditions and when they can open fire. Then we need to use our diplomatic and legal tools. Invoke treaty mechanisms like Article 4. Use diplomatic protests, sanctions. Signal that violations will cost you. Allies within NATO also need to show unity publicly. so that Russia cannot divide us. Reassure population near the borders. And then we need constant exercise and readiness drills. Regular drills for scrambling jets, for intercepting. Then you've got anti-drone operations. We need to make sure everyone is constantly ready. What possible paths might Russia follow now? And this all depends on how NATO responds. You might have more frequent probing, increased frequency of incursions of drones and fighter jets. They might test our limits more aggressively, possibly longer incursions or more provocative manoeuvres. Then they might try electronic warfare, jamming to complicate the detection, make it harder to see their jets or drones. Then you've got diversionary tactics. Are we going to see simultaneous incursions in multiple places to really test NATO's response, stretch our resources? Could they then escalate if it looks like NATO is weak? But if NATO looks strong, they could hold back. We could see less incursions. How could NATO respond moving forward though? They could be more aggressive in their air defence posture. Instead of just tracking and escorting when they intercept fighter jets, we could see a possible shoot down if necessary posture. But it's got to be under strict rules of engagement. Get better responses, okay? Better sensors, faster identification when it comes to drones. You've got the possibility of the new lasers. Maybe deploy these on the eastern flank. We could have more air combat patrols, more fighter jets in the air, increase the number of bases we have on the eastern flank. Then we could use a better deterrence, more visible exercises, more deployments, more missile defence systems, more investment into our air defence and our air superiority. What we are seeing in more recent Russian incursions is not haphazard. They are calculated probes. They are testing, mapping, gathering intelligence, pushing the lines. These are part of a broader strategy. This goes well beyond the war in Ukraine. This is about power projection, about redefining what NATO allows and how far will NATO push back. NATO can respond, not just with intercepts, but with clarity of purpose, with funding, with readiness, with unity. If deterrence fails, security fails. The cost of unpreparedness is higher than the cost of vigilance. We have to be ready as states, as alliances, and as citizens to insist that the defence is not an optional budget, that in a time like this we support our forces. The systems. Do let us know what your thoughts are on this. Comment below. I'll be very interested to hear what you've got to say. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe.